might want to finish this video before you finish that scoop. One household named Creamery kept shipping product while regulators flagged contamination years before the headlines. And the retraining and PR tour that followed didn't fix the trust gap. If the label on your freezer favorite is more comforting than the ingredients inside, stay with me. We're naming 7 brands to avoid, starting with safety lapses and ending with watered-down ice cream that isn't legally ice cream, plus 3 that actually earn their price. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. What deadly bacteria can survive your freezer and still make you sick? It showed up where it never should have, inside a beloved creamery. Let's start with the cold truth. Freezing slows microbes, but it doesn't wipe them out. Safety in ice cream is more than flavor and a clean-looking scoop. It's stainless lines, hot water that hits the right temps, and people who follow the steps every time. When the process slips, the freezer can lock in a problem instead of stopping it. Here's where the loyalty gets tested. Inspectors raised red flags long before most shoppers heard a word. Products still moved. Shelves stayed stocked. Fans stood by the brand and got silence back. Inside a plant, teams run environmental swabs. Think cotton-tipped sticks gliding over drains, wheels, gaskets, the tough-to-clean corners. Those swabs go to a lab. One positive might be a miss. Repeat hits in the same zones are not a fluke. That's a map of where the pathogen lives and a sign the system is leaking. Look at the paper trail you never see on a label. Inspection write-ups and internal corrective action plans. They promise fix-it steps, deep cleans, parts replacement, retraining. When those plans don't stick, the same weak spots pop back up. Sloppy floor drains that splash, hoses hung low, residue under filler heads, shortcuts in equipment cleaning. These are not flavor issues. These are movement issues, where dirty water travels and touches food. A factory is like a kitchen with conveyor belts. If the sink is dirty, every plate after that risks a smear. Once a bad zone connects to a filler, the problem scales by the hour. Consumers missed the pattern because the product didn't sit in every store in America. Limited distribution means fewer complaints reaching a single system, fewer headlines, slower pressure to act. By the time the story spreads, families have stacked cartons in the garage freezer on faith. The bug had a name, Listeria, and the allegation sticks like gum on a shoe. Product kept shipping while red flags piled up. That's not a PR mess. That's a protocol failure. You don't spin away drain design, cleaning steps, or swab results. Now let's move on to the less obvious risk, corporate comfort food that quietly lowers the bar. If the carton looks familiar, do you check the tiny words under the flavor name, or do you just trust the logo? Let's start with how the big umbrellas work. When a parent company runs plants in different regions, it pushes one playbook. Same base, same stabilizers, same sweetener targets. So it ships clean, melts slow on trucks, and sits longer in a freezer case. That streamlines cost. It also trims the things you actually taste: fresh dairy notes, real vanilla, the slow melt that carries flavor. Here's the rub. 2 problems hide in plain sight. The texture goes limp and spongy, and the feel-good brand story comes with baggage the carton doesn't mention. You get polite, middle-of-the-road scoops, and a corporate trail you didn't sign up to fund. Take a mainstream brand under a global parent. The flavors stay safe. Vanilla, chocolate, a swirl here or there, but the melt turns thin and watery. Heavy overrun pads the pint with air. You get a tall container that weighs less than you expect, and a scoop that puffs up in the bowl, then sags. Overrun is simple. It's air whipped into the mix. More air means bigger volume, less density, cheaper freight, slower ingredient spend, but it steals flavor. Dense ice cream carries butterfat and aroma. Airy ice cream tastes faint and fades fast. There's another tab on the receipt. Corporate controversies don't vanish at the freezer door. Sourcing questions, labor issues, water and land disputes. When the parent company is the story, your dessert becomes a vote you didn't mean to cast. If the taste is mid and the ethics feel off, what are you paying for? Run the spoon test at home. A dense scoop fights back a bit and melts to a smooth, velvety pool. An airy scoop caves on contact and slides into sweet foam. No lab coat needed. Just a spoon and 60 seconds. Nostalgia can sell a carton, but it won't thicken a base, shorten an ingredient list, or fix a thin melt. Memory is not a recipe. The real kicker: this participation trophy ice cream sells a logo, not a dessert. Value shoppers deserve more than a mascot and a press release. But labels do more than soothe. They can also sidestep the truth about what's in the carton, and the fine print is where the game really starts. That pint might not be legally ice cream. The label tells you if you know where to look. Let's start with the rule book. Ice cream has a standard of identity. It's not just a name, it's a recipe lane. Real dairy, minimum solids, enough butterfat, and limits on how much air you can whip in before it stops being the real thing. When a carton says frozen dairy dessert, that's a legal sidestep. It signals the base doesn't meet the bar. Less fat, more fillers, a formula tuned for cost and shelf life over body and flavor. Here's where it slides. Cost-cutting swaps cream for milk protein concentrate and skim blends. Gums and stabilizers stack up to fake thickness. Artificial flavors stand in for real vanilla or fruit. The package still reads premium, gold trim, the word creamy in bold, but the scoop tells another story. You've seen the shift. A once classic brand reformulates into frozen dairy dessert, and the change shows up in the bowl. The melt goes oily, then breaks into icy bits. The texture separates. The ingredient list gets long enough to need a deep breath, with every line doing work the butterfat used to do. Then there's the calorie hype play. A brand cuts fat, adds protein powders, and leans on sugar alcohols to keep the numbers tidy. On the spoon, it turns brittle and icy. Flavors dull out early. You're left with a sweetener echo that lingers. Regional pride has its own trap. A local farm label sounds safe, but if each plant runs its own tweaks, quality swings. One store's batch scoops dense and smooth. The next town over, the same flavor eats like frozen foam. Storytelling doesn't fix a sloppy process. Watch the telltales. Milk protein concentrate can thin body while boosting protein on paper. Artificial flavors punch quick but fade fast. Sugar alcohols cool your tongue and flatten sweetness. Stabilizers, gums and gels, hold water, but often leave a slick melt. You pay twice. First at the register for a premium carton, then at home with a fake indulgence that won't satisfy. The brand that can't legally say ice cream telegraphs the downgrade. Read the words. Scan the deck. Check the air in the scoop. Your spoon will feel the truth. So who still earns their price? Let's talk about 3 brands that make the cut. Premium should taste like premium. Here are 3 that prove it at the spoon. Let's start with what earns a spot in your cart. Short labels you can read in one breath. Real dairy or fruit up top, not fillers doing makeup work. Slower churn that builds body instead of fluff. And sourcing that isn't a mystery, where the vanilla, cocoa, and eggs come from and why that cost is worth it. First up, Ben & Jerry's. You get chunk integrity. Big pieces that stay whole, not dusty specks. The base carries bold flavors that don't wash out as it warms. The mix-ins are the real deal. So the cookie dough tastes like cookie dough and the chocolate tastes like chocolate. On top of that, the company puts fair trade and non-GMO sourcing on the record, along with cage-free eggs and responsible chocolate. You're paying for the scoop and the standards. Häagen-Dazs keeps it classic. The labels are short and plain. Cream, milk, sugar, egg yolks, vanilla. No gums doing the heavy lift. The body is dense and smooth, the kind that coats your mouth instead of flashing sweet and vanishing. Their vanilla passes the hard test. Clean dairy, real vanilla character, a slow, even melt. Then there's a Tellini-style gelato lane. Lower fat on paper, but lower air in the churn, so the spoon still feels weighty. Flavors hit hard. Chocolate reads like cocoa, caramel tastes like caramel, and the warmer serve brings those notes forward. The clear tubs show what's inside, from ribbons to chunks, which is a small but useful truth in packaging check. Why these feel better comes down to process. Slower churn and lower overrun mean less air and tighter structure. You feel that as weight on the spoon, a slower melt in the bowl, and flavors that linger instead of thinning out with each bite. Use the back of carton rule. For basic flavors, 5 to 7 core ingredients. For mix-ins, the add-ins should read like a pantry, not a lab. On price, work the weekly promo. Grab staples like vanilla, chocolate, or coffee, where shortcuts can't hide. Split a pint and serve it cold and small. Quality stretches farther than foam. You don't need a bigger budget, just a sharper filter. Real ingredients reward you twice. Taste now, trust later. Quick recap and a simple checklist before you head to the freezer aisle. Trust isn't a flavor, it's a process. If the label whispers comfort, but the ingredients yell shortcut, believe the ingredients. Read the legal name, not the marketing line. Scan the list for real dairy, clean add-ins, and fewer gums. Then check density with your spoon. Light and foamy is a tell. If this gave you something to chew on, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who keeps a pint in the freezer door. It helps more than you think. Read the identity, scan the deck, feel the weight on the spoon. Small checks every trip. Safer choices, better scoops.